Hey everybody, welcome to my Torque Amara explosive build. This one is a bit more non-traditional. I haven't seen anyone else upload something like this. All the builds I've seen related to Amara relate to her elemental, shock, and melee abilities, which no doubt those are fantastic builds. They probably output more damage than this. I'm not claiming this is the best build, I'm just claiming this is a fun build, something a bit different that I've been having a lot of fun with, and I wanted to throw it out there for you guys. This build revolves around the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot shield. Yes, it's back, and unlike in previous games, I think it's actually pretty damn useful. It drops IEDs at a pretty good rate in my opinion, and the more damage you take and the more damage you do to yourself, the more they drop. And if you pair that right by getting up close to your enemies, it's just pretty much non-stop explosive damage. It's super fun. The build is definitely a run and gun, move fast, get up in your opponent's business type of build. There's no nonsense to it, just blow them apart, and it's a lot of fun to use. So let's dive right into the build itself, what you're going to need, equipment and perks, and then we'll wrap up with some gameplay where you guys can see it in practice. The main piece of equipment that you're going to need for this build, and this is what inspired me to do this in the first place, is the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, commonly abbreviated as the WTF. The specialty with this shield is that it has a 25% chance to drop IEDs when damaged, when you're damaged, and these deal, for the one I got, 431 damage. The key with this is that those IEDs drop very frequently. The more that you're taking damage and the more that you are damaging yourself with splash damage, the higher chance you have to drop those pretty much constantly, and that's really the key to this build. The way you really want to play this build is that you want to get as close to your enemies as possible. You want to take as much damage as you can, both from your enemies and from yourself, and I'm going to show you kind of how that works. And as you do that, you just up your chances of dropping these IEDs. And when I'm doing it, they just seem to drop almost as if it's a 75% chance or 50% chance. So they're dropping pretty frequently, and they are just they're super overpowered, and they clear out enemies, and the ones that aren't cleaned up, then you can just mop up yourself with your explosive weapons. The skill tree that I go down mainly is the green one, the Brawler skill tree. There's a couple perks in here that I would say are essential for this build, but after that, it's really up to you kind of what you want to do and how you want to customize it to meet your needs. For me, I like to have the high damage output, but I also like to have a lot of health regeneration and shield regeneration, and that's because you're very close to the enemies the way that you play this build, and you're constantly taking damage. So the best way I find to keep yourself going so you're not constantly having to get a second wind is to really just up all the perks that give you any kind of health regeneration. So let's get down to the perks here that you need to have for this build. First one is Arms Deal. This one ups your splash damage by 20% when it's maxed, and then reduces the splash damage that you take by 40%. This is absolutely critical because the whole point of this build is explosive damage, and splash damage is just going to up the amount of damage you're dealing to enemies around you. It's very important for the IEDs that come out of your shield because this affects those. The splash damage reduction is also super critical because as you are getting up and close to your enemies, close and personal, your shotgun that does explosive damage will deal damage back to you. The splash damage affects you, and the IEDs actually damage you as well. So the splash damage reduction is very critical because if you don't have this perk, then you're dealing too much damage to yourself. You need some in order to activate the IEDs, but you don't want too much to where you're going down. So this is absolutely critical. Second perk that is essential for this build is Personal Space. This ups your damage depending on how close you are to the target. When it's maxed out, you get a bonus of 36%. The whole point of this build is getting really close to your enemies with an explosive weapon like a shotgun, and then taking damage so that the IEDs come out of your shield. So you want this perk because it gives you a bonus for being close to your enemies, and that's how you play this build anyway. So there's no reason not to have this perk, and if you don't have it, you're going to find that this build is not quite as effective because you're just not going to be doing as much damage as you could be being up close. You know, the way I play this, I'm almost touching my enemy, so I really want the bonus damage from this perk. After that, as I said, the exact perks that you pick are up to you and how you want to go ahead and customize the build for you. What I like to focus on is regenerating my health, my shields, and reducing the damage reduction that I have because I want to take damage because every bit of damage I take activates the shield perk that it has, the IEDs, but I don't want to take too much so that I go down. So I have clarity here so that Amara regenerates health. That's super useful. And the lower your health, the higher the regen. That's super useful because when I've been playing this build, my health goes down a lot. So this is pretty essential in my opinion. After that, I have Helping Hands. I definitely want to sink more points into this as I get them because as I use my action skill, then I get increased damage reduction, and it lasts quite a bit. You can customize as you want, but this is pretty nice to have because once again, you want to take damage so that you activate your perk, but you want to reduce the amount that you take so you're not going down too much. Along the lines of health regeneration, I have mindfulness. Now this regenerates my shield, so this is also very nice. Although the shield I have, I lucked out in that it has a very low recharge delay. This just makes that even less. When I'm playing, sometimes I can almost hear my shield constantly want to regenerate because I'll have so many stacks of mindfulness. Every time an enemy hits me, it like breaks my shield and it's at 0, but then it goes to recharge and I take more damage, and it's almost this constant cycle of breaking, which can kind of hurt your ears, and it's kind of funny. But it's very helpful because if you're at a point where you just need to kind of duck out for a sec, you can regenerate that shield super quickly and then just go back to blowing enemies apart. I go back and forth using phase slam and fracture, and then for bosses I typically use phase cast because bosses you don't always want to get super close to them and sometimes you can't. But what I really like about fracture more than the phase slam is just the cooldown time. It's a few seconds less. It's 28 versus 35, and that might not seem like a lot, but because I get the extra damage reduction with her arms, reducing damage when I use my action skill, I like to have that sucker cooldown as quick as possible so I can use it again and reactivate that perk. I don't have the best class mods right now. I've been using the same one for a while and I just haven't found anything else that's better than it, and it modifies 2 perks in the skill tree, so I just decided to go down this one. What I do like about this skill tree is it has a couple things that are useful for the torque shotgun I'm using. It has increased reload speed, mode switch speed, which is good when you're using the sticky versus the impact, and that's why I use this passive ability fast hands for. And I have do harm here, which, you know, for every stack of rush that you have and you use it, then your action skill damage is temporarily increased. Not essential for this build, and like I said, I'm still trying to kind of figure out where I want to allocate points and such, but this has been pretty useful. It just ups the damage, and damage is always good. Then I have Transcend here. This is kind of nice because it ups your critical hit damage, your accuracy after using your action skill. So this is useful just because after using, whether it's fracture, phase slam, phase cast, whatever it is you're using, you get bonus critical hit damage. That's mainly why I have this. Accuracy is nice too, but I'm pretty close to enemies anyways. I don't need a whole lot of accuracy, and getting that extra critical hit damage of almost 20%, it's a pretty darn good skill. It just really ups your damage, and that's kind of essential for this build. Next we have Restless, which gives Amara an increased action skill cooldown rate. This just lets you use your action skill more, which ties to a couple perks that I have. Allows you to output more damage. There's just literally nothing bad about this perk. No matter what build you're doing, you should probably have this one. So I have a few points put in here, and I plan on maxing it out, if not adding more from a class mod. Last but not least, this is purely from the class mod that I have. If it wasn't here, I probably wouldn't even have anything over here right now, but I have Steady Hands, which gives increased weapon handling and accuracy. It's not bad to have, honestly. Having the increased handling and accuracy is good because the torque shotguns that I've been using, they're not the most accurate at times. You know, they're big, bulky and such. So having the increased handling and accuracy just helps me land my shots a bit more when I'm not right up against the enemy. So it's not bad to have this, but it's just kind of here because it's in my class mod. So going back to equipment now, and let's look at this in depth. Once again, there's a lot of room for customization here. You can kind of do what you want. A few things I would recommend you have, of course, you need the WTF shield for the IED drop chance. I'd recommend a class mod that modifies some of the perks more in the green side. I've been really unlucky and haven't found anything better than what I have on here, and I do like that it gives the torque weapon accuracy. That's kind of handy. So until I find something better, this is what I got. Ideally, what I'm looking for is something that modifies arms deal and personal space, you know, by 2 or 3 or 4, however much it can go up, because that will just make this build even better. And then hopefully the extra bonuses it would have is something tied to like splash damage radius. I've seen those on shields before, and then like torque weapon accuracy or torque weapon damage. That'd be the ideal. That's what I'm on the lookout for. For a grenade, I like to have a transfusion type grenade. Typically this one is a little bit different in that it heals your shield, so I've been playing around with that a bit, but I recommend having a transfusion grenade because once again, you're taking so much damage. Sometimes in a pinch, you need more health than what your health regen perks will do. So having the quick go-to grenade is quite helpful. And then this is another key to this build. So you've got the WTF, and then for me, it was this bad boy that I found called the Shredded Bang Stick. It has plus 51% weapon damage and then plus 300 splash damage radius. It's a torque shotgun, and so you can see the damage is very high. I mean, this is only level 25, and it's at almost 400 damage, which that's going to go up the closer you are to the enemy. And then we've already got our splash damage perks going, and then we've got this splash damage here. Basically, that just translates to insane amounts of damage, and if your enemies are huddled close together, you can hit one and it's going to affect the rest. And what I also found is that you can just kind of shoot this next to enemies. Enforcers, for example, their shields, you can just hit next to them and it'll damage them. You can hit enemies behind cover. Just really, really useful. There are other torque shotguns you could get, but I would definitely recommend looking out for one that has similar modifiers to this. You just want something that's going to give you as much splash damage and damage as possible. And that's really the only essential gun. I've got a couple, you know, things that are just my personal preference. I have this Jacobs revolver I got from a quest. I've got a long rifle Jacobs, which I never use, and I've got a torque rocket launcher just to help me get up if I need to, or just use that against boss enemies and such. So whatever other weapons you want to have, that's up to you. It's really critical to have a torque shotgun that's similar to this one. That's it. It's pretty simple. The main thing that's difficult to get is that shield, but if you can get that shield, man, this build has been so much fun. I played around with a lot of different things with Amara, and I didn't want to just do the cookie cutter elemental build right off the bat. I wanted to see if I could get creative, and this I thought was just a fantastic, super fun build to do, and it's very versatile. I mean, it's certainly great for mobbing. But it also did well against boss type enemies and straight up bosses. So I like to have that. I like to have versatility in my build where I don't have to change things too often. So now that we got the build itself out of the way, here's some footage of me utilizing it. I'm gonna put the sound on because I think it really helps hammer home. You can tell when the IEDs are dropping, when they're exploding and such, just how things work. If I keep it silent, I don't think you're getting the full effect of it. And you can see how all these things work, how close I get to the enemies, how the damage works, how the damage increases and then decreases when I'm farther away. I've got a few different types of enemies here too. I've got mobs, just standard mob type enemies, and I've got some more boss type enemies for you to see how it stacks up against harder enemies. So without further ado, here we go.
Gun show on this girl! They're getting away! Children of the Vault, wake your empty heads up and start shooting! Kill the Vault Hunter! Through my veins. Ha! Down you go! Oh, great! You're welcome! Run from me! The great! You wanna go?
Make friend!
I got it! Gotta hand it to me.
You're gonna get... Heretic Siren! Hunk of junk!
Thanks, guys.
I never took up!
Another reload!
Fight you in blood!
I am the greatest! done.
Don't go now.
Wasted my time.
Better than
So there you have it. There's the build in practice. In case you were wondering, the IEDs are like the red ball things that were flying all over the place. Those are the IEDs that come from the shield, in case you were kind of confused as to what those were. And hopefully you saw it just absolutely destroys enemies. You just blow them apart. It's a lot of fun, especially if you can get that critical hit damage. You're just dealing out massive amounts of damage with the torque shotgun. The splash damage is great. You don't even have to hit them. A lot of times you can just shoot by them. The IEDs coming out. When the IEDs come out, it's just, it's so much fun. It's so easy. And then sometimes you can hit spells where it's like a dry spell, I'll call it. And for some reason, just IEDs just don't seem to be coming out with the random throw of the dice that the game is doing. Those situations can be a bit tricky, but you just run away for a sec, let your shield regeneration come back, shoot from a distance, whatever, and then the IEDs start dropping soon, and then you're good to go. I'm really excited to try to expand this build, go down more skill trees as I get to be a higher level, getting a better class mod that addresses more of the skills I want it to. And I'm really interested to see how this does against higher level enemies, end game scenarios, true Vault Hunter mode, the works. That's gonna wrap things up. I hope you guys enjoyed this build and liked it. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button down below. Subscribe for more videos like this. Let me know if you've gotten the WTF shield, and if you have, if you've put it to use, or if you sold it, if you stuck it away in the vault somewhere, or the bank somewhere. And if you have found the shield, I'd really appreciate it if you could comment down below if you remember where you got it from, so that way hopefully myself and others who are going to be trying to farm this shield, we can at least try to get some semblance of where it might drop from. Thank you again so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next installment.